Welcome to the May 28th, 2019 episode of Reactive Consciousness, our in-depth podcast about what happened this week in our lives. I am your host, Lotus Prince, and this is...
Old Man Snobby.
And...
Guess what that means? We're talking about wrestling.
And not... Vice the Bold. Whoa, welcome. Not Vice the Bold's funny every time I...
Although, in the honor of Vice the Bold, who is not here this week, Lotus did mess up the intro once before we started recording.
That is true. Maybe I'll slap it at the end of the recording or something.
Oh, you should definitely do that. At least send it to Vice in private.
Just give him a little something to amuse him.
A little private showing from the Lotus Prince.
Whoa, it's the behind the scenes secrets.
This is where the magic happens.
Just at my computer.
That gets you
just
every time, even if we're just like sitting in your room recording a Let's Play.
But that's why it's funny. This is where the magic happens. I'm just playing a freaking video game,
and there's no nuance or seductiveness to it whatsoever.
I plugged in a microphone instead of normally when I don't plug in a microphone. Whoa, this is where the magic happens. But anyway, this is the Reactive Consciousness episode where we talk about stuff that happened. So, Old Man Stompy, yeah, you've already let us know that you're here, so there's only one of two possible things you'd be talking about, except this time it's actually both of those things. Mm-hmm. So yeah, why don't you get us started?
To be fair, I talk about all the other stuff that you guys
true.
talk about. I just don't care. So, I just want to touch very briefly on a story that came out over the last week and a half, I guess, since the last time I was on the podcast, which was that a female professional wrestler who had performed for some period of time with WWF had passed away. Apparently, due to the coroner's report, was judged to have committed suicide at the age of 39, which is awfully young. Mm-hmm. And distressingly common among professional wrestlers. Her name was Ashley Massaro. She won, I believe, a talent search to make it into WWF, and she spent a few years on the roster. Like most women's wrestlers, up until a few years ago, her role was immensely degrading. And from what we've heard in the aftermath following her passing, what actually happened was substantially worse. And I mean, you cannot be in a good headspace and decide that you have no way out but to kill yourself. So we can only imagine what she was going through at the time. But we know for a fact that she was still wrestling on the independent scene, that she was still excited to do it as a career despite what happened to her in the WWF. The details, there was a lawsuit stemming from her time with WWE, for which the details have come out, and they're awful. They're unspeakable. I don't want to go into them on this podcast. They're more depressing than a lot of the really sad stories that we cover. I feel like we talk about this occasionally because we know that following things like professional wrestling, we talk not just about that, but also about all of the entertainment that we partake in, that they have tremendously high human costs. Maybe not always as bad as what happened to Ashley, but it's important to always be aware that when you consume media for your personal entertainment, that it was generally, I know that we can train AIs to do this now, but most of the time there's a real person behind the scenes, behind the camera, a real person doing the acting, a real person doing the writing. And it's easy to get tied up in taking things out on that person or blaming them for you not liking the media, but for a lot of people it's too much, and I don't know. Lotus, you have any thoughts?
Well, regarding the behind the scenes stuff, this is getting off of this particular topic that you were discussing, because Ashley's situation, there's a whole lot of behind the scenes stuff that a lot of people probably weren't aware of, and the more specific stuff you were like alluding to, like nobody was aware of until very recently when like documents came out. But even so, it's very easy to just not think of what's happening behind the scenes. There is definitely the pressure of people like, well, I guess in wrestling in particular, like believing you are the character. It's very easy to go like, damn, I can't believe you won, or damn, I can't believe you lost, when that outcome had been predetermined, at least in the WWE. I know that wrestling is not all fake, but in the WWE, the outcomes are predetermined. So it's like, it's very easy to get mad at a character for like making a stupid move, and then the other person beat them, and it's like, yeah, but I was acting my part. Like, what do you want from me? So it really is very easy to like just ramp up the pressure on the people that you can see on the camera. Not only that, though, but even if it is something that is clearly what you see is what you get, like on camera, like like for like YouTubers, for example, it's just like, it's me talking to my camera. Hey everybody, look at me in my YouTube video. It's very easy to just see those people like on TV or the internet or whatever as just the person on TV, the person on the internet, and leave whatever comments or whatever without realizing that these can have like impacts. Because, like, I mean, what you were saying earlier, like people deal with whatever real life they have and don't tend to film that. So they'll come back with whatever their next thing is, their next product, but it's like, you don't know how long it took to put together, whether they had to get in the right headspace to do it in the first place, stuff like that. But when I said I was going to get off topic, one thing I chose to hesitate to bring this one up for a little bit longer, just because with wrestling, the pressure is going on the person that you can see. But I was actually thinking, of all things in the world, the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, where people were talking about Sonic's design, and after the trailer came out, who was he, like the developer of the movie, like the director or something, he was like, oh, don't worry guys, we're going to change Sonic's design. And like my thought was like, I hope you're not just fucking your entire animation team and like making them crank out like overtime hours to like redo an entire movie because of something like this, because that would make me quit my job like on the spot. Like that is bullshit. So I don't know if that's actually happening or whatever. I hope not. But like, well, the point is, like, bitching on the internet can have real impacts.
So if I'm not mistaken, the Sonic movie was delayed too.
Yes, it was. It was
recently delayed to Valentine's Day of 2020.
It was actually, yes.
So, but that was only just announced. Obviously, we did not know that was going to be the case when we heard that the entire movie was going to be redesigned, potentially from the ground up in terms of the Sonic design.
Yeah.
So at least they got a couple months out of it.
Yeah.
Heading back to this particular issue, so just to like very loosely touch on a couple of things. One problem that she had was that they do shows for the troops.
Yeah.
Like the old style USO shows. And reportedly she was drugged and assaulted by a soldier, like while they were on one of the military bases.
Yeah.
Now, of course, these are allegations, and nobody from the WWF specifically backs them up, but they wouldn't, because that's
that would imply that they've been keeping that under wraps the whole for like however long.
I mean, they're a carnival business, so most of the people behind the scenes would have the back of management. That's just how the business is. I think part of this underlines the importance of like believing assault victims.
Yeah.
I think it's certainly unlikely that we do. Like every time we hear a story like this, the first thing we think of is like what are the holes in the story? How can we discredit this person? And that's really unfortunate that we choose that path.
Yeah.
That we assume that every person who levels an allegation from against someone has something to gain out of it other than their personal peace of mind for like achieving justice for something that was transgressed against them.
Yeah, it is very rare for those actually. I mean, there are and have been and will continue to be false accusations, but those are like a drop in the bucket compared to the real accusations, because really all that's happening is like to publicly declare something like that you've been like sexually assaulted. Like first of all, you immediately get the deniers like you were talking about, but in regard to that gets you all sorts of attention that you don't want. Like, especially when it comes to stuff like if the person committing the assault is like a high profile person. So people talk about, oh, you don't want to ruin that person's career, and like, and so now you're getting death threats after having been assaulted and stuff like that. Like, it's not worth it to fucking lie about stuff like this. I know some people still do, but like, it is just not worth it, especially because if someone does make a false accusation and it's found out, they are crucified. So like, what, like, in the general sense, why would you lie about something as serious as this?
Mm-hmm. So there's one other thing I want to touch on, and I appreciate your thoughts on the matter regarding this, is that so Ashley got her role in WWF because she won a fan competition, or a fan voted competition. There have been a couple of these like reality TV style shows that the WWF has run. They're like American Idol style, where like the fans vote for eliminations.
Okay.
And so at the time, like, we know that up until like a few years ago, basically every woman that was hired to be part of the women's division of the WWF was mostly just the same model of athlete. They were all fitness models. They all had like tremendous amounts of plastic surgery. They were almost always blonde. They were almost always there to like be humiliated and have their clothes pulled off.
Yeah.
Like in wrestling matches at some point during their careers. Even the ones who turned out to be like exceptionally talented wrestlers who put on good matches, like in the abstract, they all knew that they were being hired to be eye candy for the higher-ups in the WWF and also for the predominantly male fan base. But Ashley decided to take some agency over that. She tried to game the fan, because it's important to remember that like I said, a lot of these women are fitness models.
Yeah.
They are proud of their bodies, and a lot of the time they do, even though they are largely like compelled to do so by the standards of beauty that we carry with us. Like, they do try to take some agency. They try to be fit, try to exercise, try to get plastic surgery to make their bodies the way they perceive themselves to be, or like aspire to be. And like, it's unfair that we put these standards on them, but they're trying to. But but nonetheless, like, they put a lot of time and effort, a lot of exercise, a lot of money invested in their appearance, and like, they did it for a reason, to be seen on television. So Ashley tried to take that a step further. She would give out her personal phone number. She asked the fans to call her. I mean, obviously, she probably didn't take every call, and she might have even changed her number.
Like her actual phone number?
Like her personal phone number. Yeah, I mean, this was like 2005, 2006,
that
2007,
is
so
insane.
like quite a long time ago. But like a lot of the, this is not news. A lot of the female valets like would sell like private Skype chats and things like that, and they basically turned themselves into escort services after their wrestling careers ended.
Well, even Skype chats, that there is certainly a personal degree there, but like your phone though, like was it like a burner phone or something?
I mean, I don't think the concept of burner phone really existed. Like there wouldn't be much point to it if she wasn't picking up the other end of the phone. I mean, I'm sure she received more calls than a human could possibly take, since this was on like a nationally broadcast like television show.
Yeah. That is some risk.
But yeah, so she did that. So she had a Playboy spread that she took on around the same time that she got hired by the WWF, that she gave some previews of during the show. Mm-hmm. Like, she was definitely like pushing her agency over her body pretty hard, like to sell herself to the fans so that they would vote for her. And that unfortunately tends to lead to a pretty substantial backlash. There's a common theme that I've noticed whenever like women try to take agency over their own bodies, as opposed to just being like part of the internet porn sphere, that like, for example, on Twitch, like, women can be banned for showing cleavage, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
So like and part of this is a backlash, because if you're a woman and you stream, you will develop a reputation, if you're attractive or conventionally physically attractive, that like men will start to resent you. They will start to believe, and like they will put forth opinions that you're only popular because other men cannot control themselves and continue to watch your stream in the hopes that like you'll show your boobs.
Yeah, actually, that like I was gonna go in that second part. I was gonna go in that direction. I didn't even get to the resentment part. I was just thinking there's gonna be like people who are entitled and think like, I mean, having the phone number is a whole extra level. But even outside of that context, where it's like, if they respond to enough of your comments online or something, you'd start to think that you have this relationship with them that you really don't, and then you get mad when she's like, no, I'm not gonna like marry you or whatever. Like you're one guy among 100,000 that posts whatever.
There was an Onion or Reductress article, I can't remember which one, that said like, woman on Twitter already assigned man who will reply to every single one of her tweets.
Oh wow!
As though it's like a service that they provide on social media because it's just so distressingly common.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's one thing I've noticed. Even on, I mean, honestly, this applies to the internet as a whole. But like, I was more like in tune with the Channel Awesome side of things. Like those were the channels I tended to follow, and it is unbelievable the difference there is between the comments for the men and the women producers. Like for the men, it's your content is awesome, your content sucks. For the women, there is that, but there's a whole lot more this about you is or is not attractive. It is like that can happen for men, but it is rare unless it's something like extremely distinctive, like somebody has a long awesome beard and they're like, dude, how do you get that fucking beard or whatever. But like otherwise it's like the attractiveness conversation just doesn't happen for the male streamers or for the male producers.
Let's just like touch on this real quick because it definitely does happen. Like there are like I watch a lot of Magic the Gathering streams. There are men who get made fun of if they have dyed hair, you know, if they're like overweight. You remember Crackgate from Magic the Gathering?
I can see the overweight thing. That never goes away. Yeah.
So like in particular,
wait, like, Crackgate? Do you mean that guy who was like posing in front of the ass cracks?
The butt cracks, yeah. So like the reason we have a problem with that is not that like of course it's like it's you know it's off-putting to go to a Magic tournament. It doesn't represent the game very well when like there's a whole bunch of people sitting at the top tables and their asses are hanging out of their pants. You know, like of course it looks a little gross, right? But like what the guy did was not a solution to that problem. Like if like shaming these people is not going to necessarily make most of them pull up their pants. They're just going to stop coming to Magic events. Yeah, you know, it would have been nice if you just asked them nicely in private to hit their pants, but he had to make it all about him and all about.
Well, no, I was just gonna say like, but it's funny if he does that, so it becomes like
exactly like you're turning these people into jokes.
Yeah, it just makes me think of this isn't quite the same thing, but the principle is similar. You know, the people who film themselves like donating money to some homeless guy or whatever, so it's more about them than the act. Like if they really cared about being good, then they would just do it.
Yeah. So, like harassment doesn't solve a problem; it just drives people away. Like, so this is a common theme among a lot of the things I want to talk about today. But like, when you're fostering a community, you know, there's a social contract, and we talked a little bit about this with the clickbait. Actually, we haven't talked about this yet because this is supposed to be aired before Corrective Consciousness, right?
Yeah, that's true. Spoilers. So we're going to talk about clickbait briefly in Corrective Consciousness on Thursday.
Like. The idea is that when you're a content creator, you're promoting a community of people who are like following you and participating in the content you're creating, oftentimes interacting heavily with you. You know, and it's very easy to fall into a trap where you foster a community that's only there to complain about something. Maybe it's to complain at you, maybe it's to complain about something that's bothering them. But like pointing at a problem is destructive, and it's always harder than coming up with a solution to that problem, which is constructive.
Yeah.
And as a result, like communities get toxic really quickly when you focus on the negative. And it's not like people don't need an outlet; they deserve an outlet to like talk about things that are frustrating to them. But to like heal from that, you tend to need people who are supportive of you, and you can never feel like that's entitled to you. So you have to build it and provide it yourself. You know, you have to like give a little bit of yourself.
And by the way, this isn't quite the same thing, but not only. Like going back to the negativity going back to destructive versus constructive. A lot of times, constructive is just plain harder to do. Like I don't have a situation, or I don't have a solution, but the situation just pisses me off, and I'm going to let you all know about that. That's easy as well. So that's like you see a whole lot more of that than the constructive stuff. I mean, not to mention, like we also said. I mean, will say in Corrective Consciousness regarding like people like hate watching and stuff like that. Like it can be more well, I don't know if fun is even the right word, even if you do it for your entertainment, but like more, cathartic to just like be able to complain about something. So there's just a
So-
lot more of that.
There was a Magic streamer a while ago who had a rant. He got like really upset because he said like, "Why are people so mean on the internet? It literally costs you nothing to not be an asshole." And I don't necessarily agree with that. Like, it seems like an easy thing.
Well, it also costs you nothing to be an asshole.
Yeah, exactly. The point is that, like, when I was a kid, like, not a kid, I guess I was in college or high school at the time, like, growing up on the early days of like, large internet message forums, when enough people had the internet that, like, you had a big cross-section of the population, and big forums like GameFAQs, IGN, all these other places,
Yeah.
was that people would always say, like, oh, you know, it's just the internet, don't take it too seriously. And,
yeah.
like, it fosters a community where people just don't feel responsible for the things that they say, and like
it's backed up by law too. Like, death threats of the internet, for example, are often just dismissed because it's like, it's some rando on the internet, like, and then the person fucking dies, and they're all like, how could we have known? It's like, maybe if you took like this would you would have had like squad cars flying into that guy's neighborhood if I walked into the station and showed you like a letter or something. But like, if it's on the internet, who cares? So there's a lot more accepted, just pure toxicity.
Yeah, so you remember the FBI Gamergate investigation that, like, people were sending death threats to various targets of that whole thing.
Yep.
And the FBI report was publicized at some point, and they said that they, like, went to the guy's house, and it was very clear that he had no actual, like, intent or, like, capacity to carry out any of the threats that he had, like, put forth to some of these people.
But that's irrelevant to the situation.
It's not like you know that. Like, the psychological stress of receiving 100 death threats a day must be staggering.
Yeah, it's still doing damage. Like, they're not coming to arrest him for murder. They're coming to arrest him for making a death threat. Those are different things.
So, like, what I would say is, you know, one thing that I often hear in response to these kinds of complaints is that people tend to want to know, like, what's the hard and fast rule? You know, what things can't I say? How can I not offend people?
Well, just imagine if you wouldn't do it to their face, then you shouldn't do it here.
Well, it's not just about that. It's also about, like, if someone says that your words hurt them, it's not that you say that you could not have avoided them, because maybe you talked about something that you would have had no idea would be injurious.
No, that's
to
true.
Somebody.
Like, it's still an in-person thing. Like, you can make mistakes. Like, watch out and learn from them or something. But like, I mean,
so
don't turn on your internet personality. Is what I'm trying to say.
That's what I mean. Is like, if someone says that your words hurt them, you know, then you have to take that seriously, and you have to take some degree of responsibility for it. And like, we try to do that here. Of course, we don't hear enough from people, like, to really say that it's that big of a deal. To quote some other internet people that I've listened to, like, we're not popular enough yet for the internet to be mean to us.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
But like, not only that though, but like there's also the other kind of person who doubles down on it, which is like, oh, you shouldn't be so sensitive. Well, it's like, well, they are, so don't be an asshole. Like, it's not that hard.
Mm-hmm. Like, how do you know how sensitive I am?
Well, no, forget how sensitive. That's where I was gonna go. How sensitive you should be. It's like, well, this is what it is. So fuck off.
Mm-hmm. So that covers the rant that I was going to save for a later topic. So we can talk about happier stuff a little bit. I would just like to very quickly, to close this out, there are a number of funds that have been set up by Ashley Massaro's contemporaries that deal with both the victims of assault in and around the U.S. military and also of just general survivors of mental health issues. So I would welcome anybody to go look those up and donate to them if they feel like this cause is worth their time and money, and of course we believe that it is. So please check that out, and you know, always watch media with a careful eye that you know, they're real people.
Yeah.
So the other wrestling topic, I guess I don't want to talk about this too much yet, but I had mentioned previously that there was a promotion called All Elite Wrestling, which is sort of trying to position itself as the #2 promotion in America. So it had been started by the Young Bucks and Cody Rhodes and Kenny Omega, which is a faction that used to wrestle heavily in New Japan Pro Wrestling. They used to be called the Elite. This came basically out of a YouTube series that they used to do called Being the Elite, which is very funny and tells a lot of like helps like thread together a lot of their matches, because I mean almost all their matches are on the independent scene in between the handful of New Japan Pro Wrestling pay-per-views. So they use this YouTube series to keep like storylines rolling. So you have like one place that you can go to follow like their entire history, which is like a pretty interesting storytelling method. which keeps up with the times, I guess. So it's like kind of fun to me.
Well, that's a clever idea anyway, because like if I want to look up their matches, you have to like go find individual bits here and there. It's really nice to just have like a straight up playlist.
Well, it doesn't have the matches; it has like the stuff in between.
Well, fair enough, but it's still nice to consolidate something.
Oh, sure. I mean, it's kind of like if you want creative control over your character, the best thing that you can do is just like to start your own content creation like thing.
Yeah.
And as long as I would imagine the only company that they could work for that would really be upset with them for doing this would be WWF, which is part of the reason why they will probably never work for WWF ever again.
Yeah.
For those of them that had been in the developmental system in the past. Anyway, they had a deal with Tony Khan, who is the son of the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, billionaire. Jacksonville Jaguars are American professional American football franchise. So they have quite a lot of money. So they copyrighted All Elite Wrestling and a program called, I think, Tuesday Night Dynamite. And it was recently revealed that they had a television contract with TNT, which is highly significant because that's a much bigger channel than most any other professional wrestling program in America has ever managed to acquire since the death of WCW, which was also on TNT because it was owned by Ted Turner.
Oh, wow.
And Ted Turner only kept it on the air for so long after it was failing because he felt like he owed a debt to Jim Crockett, who was the original owner or like part of the promotion that became WCW, like in the past. So for a new wrestling program to leap immediately to TNT, and they actually got an advertisement during one of the NBA playoff games earlier.
Damn.
Is like a pretty big deal. So you know the WWF has been signing as much talent as it can to prevent these incipient promotions, both in America and in other territories, like in the UK, from like really getting a footing. But they can't keep everybody. It just eventually there's just not enough bandwidth for them all to give all these guys time and money and airspace. You know, they've got these windfalls because they have these big contracts from Saudi Arabia, and they recently got that big contract that has them putting SmackDown on Fox Sports, which got them a couple $2 billion on top of everything else. So they have the money and the wherewithal to like sign a bunch of people even if they have no intent of using them, and some of these guys are happy to take the paycheck just to hang out in WWF developmental for a while and do the house show circuit.
Mm-hmm.
But they can't keep everybody, and a lot of people aspire, especially some really talented professional wrestlers, aspire to be more than that. And so the big signee on All Elite was Chris Jericho. So he had been in WCW for most of his early career. As they were dying, he went to WWF and stayed there all the way up until a couple of years ago. He is like arguably one of the best professional wrestlers ever, and probably his last contract will be with All Elite. He's signed with them for about 3 years. He'll be 51 at the end of that, so it's hard for any wrestler. Most of them, the hard limit on wrestling careers is usually around 55. I don't know of any substantially successful professional wrestlers who have like kept going at a high level.
Yeah.
Past like their mid 50s. Like Sting was 55 when he retired a couple of years ago, and that was because he suffered like a career-ending neck injury in a regular match. Like your body just breaks down too much to keep up with a schedule. So the other one is and it was revealed at the pay-per-view that they had yesterday, is Dean Ambrose, who was a centerpiece of WWF programming until basically last year. So the top 3 guys in the WWF for a long time were Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns. They were part of a faction called The Shield. And they were inseparable. Like, they all had storylines that interrelated with one another. They were all more or less... They were like rock, paper, scissors. One of them always beat the other ones. And it felt like they were building towards one day having a triple threat at WrestleMania between the 3 of them. And now they never will have that because Dean Ambrose got fed up with his character work. It felt like a couple of years ago he won the world title, and it felt like he could have become a super duper star, like a movie star level character, like The Rock.
Mm-hmm.
But his storyline never really went anywhere, and he lost the title kind of in a lackluster manner. And it felt like he was victim to what feels like a plot by the WWF to prevent anybody from becoming bigger than the brand.
Yeah.
Because they just don't want anybody doing what The Rock did or what Batista did and like leaving the company and becoming a movie star. They want them all to work, because the WWF makes movies now. They want them all to stay within that ecosystem. So he quit. He let his contract expire after WrestleMania this year, and sure enough, he immediately showed up at the first All Elite pay-per-view after his contract expired which is huge. You don't want all of your guys to come from the competition. Like, the problem with that, and like other companies have tried this before, they've signed people away from the WWF and they've had them come in and immediately have an impact on their main event scene. And what it does is it makes your other guys look like jokes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it makes it makes you look like the minor leagues, because this guy who doesn't know any of your wrestlers, has never fought them before, doesn't know any of their tendencies, can just kind of walk in and win all your titles and immediately be a main event player. But in All Elite, they don't have that problem. For one, because Chris Jericho is already there, so they're partially legitimized, and for two, because the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega already have the reputation of like being technically the best wrestlers in the world, you know, from their time in Japan. So like a single victory over any of these guys from WWF would be fantastic, and you can tell storylines where if the WWF X guys win a match, they can have it be dirty, they can have them be heels, you know, like you just have to do it right.
Yeah.
So, this is the best chance that we've had of having a real competitor to the WWF since the closing of the WCW 18 years ago. So, like, this deal is huge. The fact that the pay-per-view was such a success, that they have, like, 2 really big names from the WWF, plus several of the biggest names from the non-WWF world of professional wrestling, is very exciting, without any of the baggage of Vince McMahon and all of his bullshit that we talked about already just in this podcast alone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Rhodes and Omega seem like the sweetest guys. The Young Bucks, they're sort of like marks for themselves. They're like the quintessential internet wrestlers. They love themselves, you know, or like that's their character. Like their ring attire at one point was just like a photo montage of themselves on their robes.
That's awesome.
So like they're perfect for the social media generation. They're fantastic. But their finishing move is called the Meltzer Driver, which is specifically named because they called it that. They thought it would impress Dave Meltzer, the journalist. Yeah. And so in the middle of when they had a match coming up, Dave's father passed away, Herbert Meltzer. He was like 91. So he lived a good long life, but he passed away. And so all of a sudden, like, they pulled off this ridiculous move. So the Meltzer Driver is like a flip, is like a pile driver, but when one of the guys is like holding the opponent for the pile driver, the other one does like a backflip off the rope to like give him some extra oomph onto a double pile driver.
Damn.
It's like a really ridiculous move. So in a match where they knew Dave would be watching after his father passed away, they did like a particularly insane variant where he did like a double flip off of both of the top ropes, off of the ring onto the floor for the pile driver. And they named it after his father, and they like talked to the camera, and they did the like rest in peace, and like, you know, Dave supposedly was like crying in his room.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Really sweet. They're just like the nicest guys. It's Cody in particular. He got shouted out by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, you know, the now extremely famous member of the House of Representatives, because he gave a great speech after this pay-per-view about diversity.
Yeah.
About like how he learned from his wife and the people he met. So they make great spokespeople. They say the right things. They do things that you can never imagine coming out of Vince McMahon's mouth.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty excited about it. I will continue to report on it on this podcast.
There we go.
It's not like I come here for any other reason. All right. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about that. I don't know what you're looking for in a wrestling promotion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't follow wrestling, but I mean that certainly sounds more positive than a lot of what I hear about WWE in general, except for just plain entertainment value. Like, that sounds like a fun match. This sounds like it's going in like a genuinely positive direction, though.
So the only thing that's sad, I guess, and this is only me saying this is sad as a consumer, not as someone who is like looking out for the future of the business, is that there's a lot of dream matches that we're probably never going to get, because it's most likely these guys will never come to WWF. We'll never see Omega versus the vast majority of the WWF roster. Only the guys who choose to come to All Elite, unless some miracle happens. Because there have been WWF, WCW like tribute shows, but they're mostly like non-canonical like memorial shows, where somebody who did double duty on both companies at some point like passes away, and everybody sends a bunch of guys to do like a local memorial. But that hasn't been done in a very long time.
Yeah.
So I'm not optimistic. But, you know, it should be fun to watch. Obviously, we're going to get like Dean Ambrose and Chris Jericho versus a lot of these guys. So really, we can get these if they jump ship.
Yeah.
And so I guess it's what you want to root for now.
Yeah, I suppose.
Anyway, the last thing that I want to touch on from like my personal area of expertise is about Magic the Gathering Arena. So I had mentioned previously that there's a pro league where they have 32 players who are signed to professional esports contracts. And one of them was Jerry Thompson, who I don't know if you recall, but I mentioned a while ago that he was invited to their world championship, and he deliberately declined his invite, and he didn't tell them until the day before the tournament.
That does sound familiar.
So he flew. It's a 24-man invitational, and he flew all the way out to Wizards of the Coast headquarters where the tournament was being run, and then he just didn't show up the day of the tournament. And he made a big like post on social media about how he was frustrated by their lack of communication surrounding the event. For example, he had no idea like what guests he could bring or like whose plane tickets were being paid for. And in general, he found this to be like a very frustrating aspect of dealing with Wizards of the Coast. That they do a very bad job of like they've had a lot of balls in the air lately. They've been doing a lot of changes to the tournament structure to try to make it more to move it into the esports age. And they've been doing a very bad job of communicating these changes to the fans and what they mean, and even to the professional players, especially who have a lot of time invested in the game already.
That's bizarre.
So he quit a tournament to protest this, and I guess it didn't make him like a persona non grata to Wizards of the Coast because they invited him back to be part of the professional league, which he was really excited about because it felt like they actually did have a concrete plan in place to make Magic more of an esport.
Okay.
But after a year, he said that it seemed like that still wasn't fixing anything because after like several months of having the Magic Pro League being a thing, they had still yet to announce, like, for example, how do people qualify for the Premier League?
Okay.
You, as a Premier player, are expected to stream at least 2 days a week. But they flew everybody out to Wizards of the Coast for one seminar on, like, how to conduct a stream. Because, you know, it's not easy to be a streamer. It's a grind.
Yeah.
And some players are clearly not good at it, and some of them just aren't native English speakers or... And let's face it, the primary audience of Magic the Gathering on Twitch, which is where their platform is American.
Yeah.
And I guess there's also... I mean, there's a lot of people who watch Twitch in Europe. There's a big... Like, there are a lot of Eastern European streamers. I remember this from, like, a project that I did. So it's not like all of the fan base is American. You know, but they're expecting to be ambassadors of the game, but they aren't really instructing them what that means.
Yeah,
like,
did they just say do a stream? Like, that is pretty broad. Do I play with my friends? Do I do unboxings or what?
Right. So like they have these seminars, but they're always on Wizards of the Coast time, which is Pacific Standard, which is horrible for like anybody in Japan, anybody in I mean some of the good players are like German, I think. There's a bunch of a couple of them definitely are Eastern European.
Yeah, that's something you should definitely have like a second seminar just for the people in the different time zones, or maybe like a third seminar because time zones are quite far from each other.
So it doesn't really feel like this guy Jerry Thompson, he quit again. He very abruptly quit the Magic Premier League, and then on top of that, it was discovered that one of the other players. So we had mentioned previously that a player had been fired basically for what appears to be allegations of sexual harassment.
Yeah.
Now, this story we covered a few weeks ago. So now we still don't know what the actual story is because he's gone totally dark, which is unfortunate. For one, like, I mean, this is one of those stories where I don't believe that we're entitled to know specifically what happened to him, but it did leave a hole in the Premier League with no, like, direct cause of, like, why this person suddenly became a non-entity to Wizards of the Coast. This one was very easy to fill. They just took in since the start of the Premier League they had run one Mythic Championship, which is their new format for the top level tournaments. So they just took that person. Their name's Autumn Burchett, and it kind of crossed a lot of boxes off on the MPL because Autumn was like a really interesting story. They're a non-binary person who used the money from the tournament to fund gender reassignment surgery.
Oh, interesting.
So it checked a lot of interesting boxes off. It was a very Autumn is a very distinct personality who like brings in a very inclusive community like into the Magic the Gathering esports scene, which is something that we are frequently lacking in esports. And on top of that, obviously had won like their first it was their only Mythic champion. So So like Autumn was a great choice, and they're like they really seem to be enjoying their role as a like a top level Magic player. So that's pretty exciting. But for Jerry and for Owen Turtenwald, the other player, who are both very unceremoniously removed. I'm sorry, Yuya Watanabe was the other player. He was discovered at a top level tournament to be cheating, like very blatantly. And so when you discover like a top level player cheating, you question like how many other times did this happen, and you just didn't notice because his reputation was such that you would never think to catch him. And it became a controversy. So it was discovered because like the judges, like one of his sleeves broke, so he replaced the sleeves that he had brought to the tournament with sleeves that he had been given, and then the judges took his deck and he got it back, and they said that the cards were marked. So like from his perspective, he tried to sell it that like, oh, the judges took my deck and they marked my cards and then gave it back to me. You know, so like obviously like it paints a pretty compelling picture that of like if you wanted like a person gone from the tournament and you were like a judge and you knew like one other judge, you could take pretty much anybody down. So like that's a little scary, but like why now? Like it's not particularly believable that would happen, you know?
And by the way, not to mention, if he actually did cheat and he's accusing the judges of screwing him over, that's going to get him blacklisted from like everything.
Yeah, I mean, like if this happened more than once, then I would say I don't even know how you'd measure, like how you'd find out if this was like some kind of exotic conspiracy theory.
No, but I mean, I don't know how you'd find out, but like what I'm saying is if he admitted to cheating, that is a bad look. But like accusing the judges of lying and cheating, like, wow, dude, just keep digging.
I mean, but it doesn't matter. Like, if you're like cheating is one of the worst things you can do in Magic. You can imagine because it compromises the integrity of the game. Aside from like actually like stealing stuff or assaulting someone, like committing an actual crime. You know, and it like historically, cheating has done a lot of damage to Magic the Gathering. It's taken a lot of time to repair. You know, if you watch like the lower level tournaments, like the Star City Games circuit, which is like the second biggest American Magic circuit besides the official one. Like, if you watch those early streams, because they were, like, one of the first circuits to actively put their tournaments on Twitch and try to have their, like, feature matches on Twitch, there's, like, a lot of shady shit going on. There's a lot of people who just, like, openly cheat, not really thinking about the fact that they're on camera.
Oh, jeez.
A lot of people in, like, the end rounds of the tournament who just, like, act like they don't know what their cards do, and it's really unclear. Like, how can you be 10-1 in a high-level Magic tournament if you have no idea how your deck functions?
Yeah.
You're clearly cheating. Like, there's a lot of shady shit, because the EV for it, the expected value is actually really high, you know, especially if you're not doing it on camera. So like Magic has this problem. It should be solved by the move to esports, you know, but like anything like this is like a pretty big black eye for the game.
Yeah.
So anyway, these two guys were ejected from the MPL. They're both fired. Well, one of them quit. One of them was fired, and they were replaced. One by a streamer who was I mentioned before there was an invitational a little while ago at PAX East where they took like the 32 MPL pros and then like 24 popular streamers as discretionary slots. They took the streamer who was the highest ranking streamer slot from the invitational.
Okay.
And they also took Jess Estefan, who is a fantastic Magic player and one of the first female players to win a Grand Prix. And both of them have turned out to be like exceptional Magic players. The streamer Savage, I don't remember his name. SAVJZ. I don't know how you'd pronounce that.
Okay.
He's excellent. He's consistently been like top 10 in the ladder, and he barely even plays. But that just further aggravates people because he's notorious primarily as like a Dota auto chess streamer, and yet here he is being invited to be a professional Magic streamer.
Yeah.
So like what bothers people now is there still isn't a clear way to become a Magic streamer, and the fact they particularly invited like I mean, it's unfortunate to, for example, Jess Estefan because, you know, the toxic internet community is trying to portray her as the quote-unquote diversity hire, when in fact she won a tournament and is clearly qualified. And one challenge that they've always faced that the online clients are supposed to address is that the qualification for high-level Magic play is often like very heavily biased towards Americans who live near a tournament center, because that's usually how you qualify for a Magic tournament. You have to be free on the weekends, which is when they usually run their major qualifiers, which not everybody is. A lot of us work on the weekends. And you have to be able to grind consistently such that you can make it onto the Pro Tour. These discretionary slots give you a little wiggle room to do that, but it's not like what do I want to say? It's not definitive. It's not like you can't guarantee that you win a tournament, any tournament, and say this will qualify me for the MPL. Like, as far as the message we're getting from Wizards of the Coast, the best thing to do is to become like a streamer and stream a lot, which is hard. Like, it's still a lot of work.
Yeah, that is.
I would venture to guess that a lot of the popular Magic streamers play more Magic than anybody except the absolute most obsessed professional players, and are probably better than 95% of the players who you will play against at these major qualifying tournaments in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
But it means that, like, you have to wait to be chosen by Wizards of the Coast, which is really sketchy, and it also kind of makes the MPL look more like a television program than like a professional circuit.
Yeah.
And, like, that's fine, it's entertaining. There are a lot of professional sports that are not intended to be the best competition, rather the best entertainment. Like the men's, the March Madness, the men's college basketball tournament. That's a 64-person single-game, single-elimination tournament. That will never crown the best basketball team. Well, I mean, sometimes it will. But that is incidental.
Yeah.
The fact that you can lose one game and you're out of the tournament forever means that that's what's exciting about it.
Yeah, there's the high risk. Like, there's the pressure the whole time.
So, and of course, like, Wizards had to fill these slots on very short notice. They obviously don't expect that players will quit the professional league all the time. One thing that I would like to note is that there's a guy, Andrew Ellenbogen. He's a player who won the 25th anniversary Pro Tour, which you'd think would be like a signature achievement, but he did not qualify for the MPL.
Bizarre.
His pro point, he wasn't one of the top 40 players. Even though he won the signature tournament, they just chose not to invite him, and they have yet to invite him to any of their invitationals. His girlfriend is also a streamer and an incipient Magic professional who has managed to top 8 a Grand Prix, which is like the second highest tier of Magic tournaments, after playing for less than a year. So what would be kind of funny to me is if she qualifies for the MPL or for an invitational slot before he does. Obviously, like, I think that she would deserve it because she has, like, leapt the overwhelming majority of Magic players in a very short period of time. But, like, it's hard to say, like, it's just like any major job application. It's hard to say, like, even if you're streaming on Twitch or you're, like, on YouTube, like, the rules for becoming a partner or an affiliate are, like, pretty clear cut. Like, you need certain minimum levels of, like, interaction. For this MPL thing, you don't have that. You kind of have to, like...
That's very frustrating.
Stream and, like, hope that you get noticed by Wizards, and also that you are a personality that is, like, conducive to the kind of product that they're trying to produce, which not everybody is. And so, like, I can understand why people are frustrated. I don't know what the fix is. The fix, obviously, I don't even know if it needs a fix. If they just want entertainment, then it will be a league for streamers, and people will stream. Like, you and I both know that if you're looking to be a content creator and you're not really passionate about it, if you wouldn't do it, like, if you wouldn't do it without the promise of making a lot of money, you're probably not going to wind up being very good at it.
Yeah, you'll be good at it for like a couple of months or something, and then you'll be like, well, here's my next video, I'm doing a thing, and it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, so exactly. So, like, you have to, people will, it will filter out the people who are streaming with the expectation that they're owed something for streaming a lot. And that's fine, but it also does not, like, produce a strong path for self-improvement, at least not a deterministic one. So I guess we'll see. That's all I got on Magic. We took a lot of time up. I told you, even though we had other news for this week, that I could talk about this for the entire episode.
Yeah.
I don't know if, like, we can touch on the other stuff.
Yeah, briefly. Well, one probably more positive thing I want to bring up is GOG, like Good Old Games. They've had a thing that was kind of trying to be like Steam's overlay for a little while called GOG Galaxy. It's been around for a few years. So it's like a client you can launch to put your games in it and launch them there, and it could update them, because GOG didn't used to do that. It just used to host downloads for games, and if a patch ever came out, you would either have to download the patch or re-download the game. So GOG Galaxy is a little more like Steam in that regard. Well, GOG Galaxy, or I should say GOG, recently came out with GOG Galaxy 2.0, and I think it's in the beta stages. Yeah, so sign up for the closed beta, but it does sound like it's going to have some very interesting features. I'm just on the website right now, just straight up reading the bullet points, but this actually sounds compelling here. So it says you can import all of your games from PC and console, build and organize them into one master collection, install and launch any PC game you own no matter the platform. So that's, I don't think even Steam brought console stuff into it, but Steam did have the ability for you to put non-Steam games onto it. So GOG's getting that too, which is also nice. And if it brings the console stuff, I don't know how that will work, but that sounds compelling. Keep track of your achievements, hours played, and games owned. Steam already did that, so it's nice that GOG is catching up. Customize your library by filtering, sorting, tagging, adding your own visuals, which is kind of cool. Follow upcoming releases and discover games popular amongst your friends. Again, Steam has this, so GOG is catching up, but this makes it more of like a viable competitor to Steam rather than the other thing. Like now you might actually have a reason to go for both on an equal level. For your friends, it says bring your friends together, see their online status. You could chat with your friends regardless on platforms, which platforms you're on. You could see their cross-platform achievements. You could see who's the master collector or completionist who spends the most time playing. Again, Steam has had this, but it's cool that GOG is now also getting it. Although I don't think Steam showed you other platforms. That's pretty interesting. Your privacy. Don't worry, we're not going to share your private information with third parties. We're not... One of the bullet points literally says, we're not spying on data from your computer. That just kind of amuses me. Mm-hmm. With a single click, you can remove imported games and friends data from our servers. For the client, library management and friends features, the best way to run and update your GOG games, cloud saving, in-game overlay, multiplayer matchmaking, rollbacks. The client is not required to play your DRM-free games, because GOG's big thing the whole way through has been that their games are DRM-free. With Steam, the DRM is the Steam client itself. With GOG, the client is cool, but you do not require it to play your games, because otherwise that would contradict their DRM-free message. And then finally, it says, connect more platforms and add new features with open source integrations. Customizations and changes to your library are saved in the cloud, so you'll have it on some other computer or device you log onto. And lastly, save any view, like a customized library or favorite games and friends, to access them instantly. And this will be on Windows and Mac. So that actually sounds pretty exciting. A lot of stuff is just catching up to Steam, but mainly the cross-platform stuff, and obviously the DRM-free stuff, is something that even Steam cannot offer. So GOG's version of Steam is becoming more viable, so that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, so like just to quickly touch on this, so we know that some of those notes are like very clearly shout-outs, like shots fired at the Epic Game Store, right? Like the one about...
Yes.
So like Epic has to some extent tried to subsume some of these features, and they do it by spying on your computer information, by like looking at your Steam's friends list and things like that.
Yep.
And so like, since they're doing this without your permission, like, you have no reason to take it for granted that they're not like gathering and using this information internally, even if they aren't like directly broadcasting it off of your computer.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, that's why I found it amusing though, because like with that shots fired GOG bullet point, it wasn't even like technical information. Like they had the official sounding, we won't give away information to third parties, but that one bullet that just directly says we're not spying on you, it's just like, oh, man.
That other one was also to Epic, right? Not necessarily.
No, it was.
But that's the story that came out right recently was that some guy used I think it was the European equivalent of the Freedom of Information Act.
Yes.
To like get Epic to reveal what information they had about him, and they sent it to the wrong person.
Yeah,
that's he found out because they apologized for it, and then all they could guarantee was the guy said that he deleted it off of his personal laptop.
That's so bad.
Like, how do you know that happened? How would you possibly enforce that? You just sent someone's personal information, probably including their credit card number, to a random on the internet.
That's such a bad look. But what I was saying though is we will not give your information to a third party. At least it sounds like official contract speak. But like "We're not spying on you" is such a casual, spoken out loud thing to say that just felt much more like a wink.
Right. So, like, I'm just going a step further by saying that, like, not only can Epic not guarantee that they won't send your information to a third party, but they can't even guarantee that they won't send it to, like, a random user.
They can't guarantee a few things. They've had their shares of fuck-ups.
Indeed. So, like, I'm pretty excited about this, and I literally was just thinking about this because I like, bought a GOG bundle during their spring sale.
Yeah.
And I realized that, like, I have no way of knowing if I own these games on Steam. And I don't think that I do. I mean, of course, I can just look at my Steam library, and I can look at my... I don't have an Epic Games library.
Yeah.
But if I did have a variety of libraries across multiple platforms, I would have a lot of problems, like, understanding what the overlap is between this package and, like, what I own on other platforms. And, Vice, like, doesn't care. Like, I mean, I'm sure he does, but, like, you know that he owns many games multiple times, and I'm sure you do, too. Like, not many,
to a degree, some. But I will say this though: GOG has had this one feature for a while, although it's very basic and not at all comprehensive. But there are some, like boldface underline some, like a few games that if they detect you have them on Steam, you could import them directly to GOG for free.
Mm-hmm.
I would not say you can use that to check what you own on Steam, but it's a start.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like enough of this information is available via public APIs, or at least can be gathered from your computer if you knew how to do it, because it's all saved directly to your computer.
Well, and at this point, though, if you could just take all of your stuff and put it on GOG anyway, then now's the best time to check. Just import it directly and put it on whichever client you prefer, Steam or GOG, whatever you want.
Oh, sure. I mean, I am kind of hoping that we're moving towards, like, a world where a lot of our, like, online gaming is consolidated, at least in an app, if not necessarily, like, on a service promoted by one of the stores.
Well, that's like, the thing. We mentioned this before, where, like, Netflix was cool because it offered you all these shows, but you don't want a monopoly. But at the same time, now that there's 1,000 streaming services, it's like, I don't want to pay for all of these. But the thing with Steam, GOG, and Epic, and other stuff, like Bethesda, all of their launcher clients are free. So why not just let us consolidate every single one of our games into any of their launchers? Let me just use only one of them for every game I want, regardless of where I actually buy the game from.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
so yeah, I am very excited about this. I will still I'm tempted to join the beta. I'm curious how this works. I own enough games on GOG. I think GOG and Steam are the only major launchers that I use, aside from, like, the handful of games I get on the Humble Bundle that require, like, the Uplay or I guess I have Diablo 2, so I need the Battle.net launcher.
I mostly haven't experienced that. From Humble Bundle, I mostly... I mean, I guess it depends on the game, obviously, but I'm used to just it giving me, like, a Steam code.
Oh, well, so the most recent monthly had Call of Duty Black Ops 4.
Okay.
And also, one of them has Overwatch, which I think is not a Steam code.
Yeah, that's Blizzard.
Yeah, so not everything. In fact, a lot of their highest profile editions, like the preview game that gets you to buy the Humble Monthly, a lot of the time is not a Steam key.
Okay, fair enough. Well, anything else you want to bring up?
Yeah. So, like, we have a couple things. So we noticed that Nintendo is about to shut down 2 games in Belgium because they're planning on passing a law forbidding loot boxes, which, like, I don't know if I'm fine with this being the way that it happens, but, like, loot boxes are gross, and I wouldn't be sad if they disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
I know that they probably fund a lot of games and a lot of game studios that wouldn't survive otherwise, and, like, a lot of
but you also see them in, like, Overwatch, where, like, Blizzard's making money hand over fist. They don't need loot boxes.
I mean, they could solve the problem to some extent by making the skins available for, like, a large amount of money, and I don't know if that would actually satisfy the legal requirements, but it seems like the workaround that they would, like, negotiate with lawmakers to be allowed to continue to sell loot boxes in America.
Yeah.
But then again, I also don't trust, like, the majority of the American Congress or Senate to really understand how video games work. So as we know from the questions that were asked during, for example, like, the SOPA hearings, that, like, the vast majority of the people even on the committee were just, like, a disaster.
Or even just, this isn't even video games, but even when Mark Zuckerberg came under fire from Congress, they were asking him questions that, like, just made no sense. Mm-hmm. And they were like, why can't you just magically know things? And he's like, because that's not how anything works. Like they were just you were using the internet where you could press buttons and things happen, and it's just like guys, fucking really.
literally the only thing that came out of that hearing was that all of a sudden you had to look at a new terms of service for every single service that you used on every single platform everywhere.
Yeah.
So like you remember that was extremely frustrating, right? You had like a whole bunch of services that you haven't used in a long time. Like all of your phone apps all of a sudden updated, all your online games updated all of a sudden.
Yeah, all of a sudden you get like 100 emails. We've updated our TOS, so thanks. Yeah.
Right, and like I guarantee you, the vast majority of people did not read the difference or could not tell what the difference was.
Especially because a lot of those terms of service, like those contract agreements, are like, you know, when you sign up for like a iTunes or whatever, it's like a mile long thing to read, to the point where it's so long that some of these companies put in like joke caveats, like you may not use nuclear launch codes. It's like a little joke because they know damn well you're not reading the fucking thing.
The brown M&M's clause.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. So yeah, I think we've touched on everything that we wanted to talk about this week.
Mm-hmm.
That was just kind of a joke at the end.
Yeah.
So like, I'm sad that it's Nintendo, because like Nintendo is like the least evil of the evil game companies, I think, sometimes.
Yeah.
Like Nintendo put out, I think it's like what is it, Dusty's what is it, Dusty's, I'm trying to remember the name of the game.
Dust and Elysian Tale?
No, it's a specific Dusty's. It's a baseball game that was free to play, free to start for the 3DS.
I don't even
and
know. Yeah.
You could. There was a video about this a while ago.
I think Vice talked about this a while ago.
Well, there's a video that talked about this just a couple weeks ago that resurfaced the game, because he was documenting what he thought was like
Rusty's Real Deal Baseball.
Oh, Rusty's Real Deal Baseball. Yeah, that's it. So you could buy with money all the mini games, or you could barter over some period of time.
Oh, that was a clever idea, yeah.
With the storekeeper to get them. And that was the actual gameplay. Like, you were actively discouraged from purchasing them, but you could if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
And so if you just went ahead and bought all of the games, you never interacted with the storekeeper. So the game gave you a new character who would be like your Navi for the rest of the game. And that guy is like the rarest Nintendo character.
Wow.
Or, like, in the sense that like before then no like evidence of him existed.
That's incredible.
As far as this guy could tell. I mean, I'm sure like there's a Japanese wiki or something that details his personal history.
Yeah, his lore.
But yeah, like Nintendo did this thing called Free to Start, which is like my favorite implementation of pay to win, which is just that like you can pay money to unlock things in the game, but once you've paid up to the full value of a game, which is usually about $40, like you get the whole game.
Well, the thing is though, like, this concept is 30 years old. It's called shareware, where you get episode 1 of a game for nothing, and then you can buy the game.
Well, I mean, I'm sure, but in this case, you get as much of the game as you're like. Usually, you're trading money for time.
Yes.
In free to play games, so in this case, you like get as much time as you want, and you just pay the rest. But you can't pay. You're not gambling.
Well, yeah,
free
to play has a new meaning today than it did in the 90s. Like today, yeah, it's like pay money to unlock the ability to continue to play. But like in the old days, the technology wasn't sophisticated enough to do that. So you got part of a game, and if you wanted to buy the rest of the game, you could. So like, it's interesting that it seems innovative to go back to the old style of offering like a demo or something like that. It's just kind of interesting.
Well, I mean, offering a demo and then you buy the rest of the game is like normal right now, right?
Yeah, but like, I guess, yeah, but again, shareware is like episode 1 instead of like level 1 or something.
Yeah, I guess so.
Because I remember that's how I played a few games back in the day, like Duke Nukem 2, Duke Nukem 1 actually as well, Raptor, Call in the Shadows, even Doom. Like my dad came home from a CVS one day with the 3.5-inch floppy disks for episode 1 of Doom. It was cool as shit.
Well, at the same time, as a general rule, like the pay-to-win philosophy is just an extension of like arcade games, right? Where you just like keep putting the quarter in.
You just hack away. Yeah, that
so,
was an older.
That's also not new, but there's no gambling involved in that usually, unless there actually is a gambling part of the game.
Yeah, which was unlikely. I will say
like an Alex Kidd.
Yeah, like I will say the arcade stuff is something I'm glad we haven't really brought back. Like even today, if you buy those like arcade games in collections today, no, not even really arcade games, but even just beat 'em ups. like I got the Taito collection on PS2, and it has a few beat 'em ups, and you just have infinite lives because I already paid you $60 for the game. Let me just fucking beat it and not hack away and get madder and madder as I have to pay for more and more continues. Because like a lot of older games, like beat 'em ups, would give you like 3 continues or something, and it's just a hard game over, and it was frustrating. And that was that was to increase replay value. I get it, but
the alternative to that is Space Harrier, which you just can't continue at all ever for any reason.
Yeah. But like it was to increase replay value because it was like $50 for these games. But now that the games are dirt cheap because they're 30 years old, it's just like just turn on limited lives if you want. like that's not the point anymore.
and also most of them have save states, so it doesn't.
That's
really
true
matter.
too. Yeah, even on like PS3 and possibly even PS2, they just gave you the option to quickly save and quit or whatever. It's pretty nice.
The Nintendo Virtual Console has always had save states, and the Switch Online service also has save states.
Marvelous.
And the Sega Steam Collection, the Sega Mega Drive and Genesis Classics, like all 50 games or whatever, that has a save state.
Very nice, very nice. And even Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection on PS3 and 360 let you do that as well.
So it turned out that Lotus was playing games the right way all along when we were watching him play games with save states.
The irony is I don't use the save states on the official releases.
And now you do Let's Plays all the time of like impossible video games that you beat totally honestly.
Yeah. And meanwhile, like every Super Nintendo game I played in college, I save stated like completely unnecessarily. Like, you never know when you might need a save state. Like, all right.
Sometimes it's actively the worst because you can wind up like soft locking your game by save stating in the wrong place.
I did that with Final Fantasy IV. I did it during like where the boss was the crushing wall, where it doesn't really fight you, but if it gets too close, you just die. And I saved at a bad point.
I just realized I have one thing I very briefly want to mention because it's hilarious and it's my one of my new favorite things in professional wrestling.
Yeah.
Which is they've reinstated a version of what used to be called the hardcore title. And the gimmick to that was that it is always on the line, no matter where you are. If you're in your hotel room asleep, it's on the line. If you're on the road in your car, it's on the line. It's 24/7. You have to defend this title.
Jesus.
So like anybody who finds you and has a referee can have a match with you right then and there.
Actually, that's the best part. Like, I understand the idea of like you could be under attack at any moment, even when you're asleep. Like, always sleep with one eye open. But just it really cracks me up that like they have to have a referee with them. Like you're in bed, someone just throws you to the bed. What's going on? And there's a referee standing there. Like, I sanction this. Like,
so this used to happen in the Attitude Era, like in like the late '90s, early 2000s, all the time. Like, there's a guy who won the original hardcore title because the guy was like taking a nap in the back room, and so the referee comes out and they're like very quiet. And like the announcers, even though there's no way the guy can hear him, are also like whispering for some reason. In their
That's amazing.
So he just like kind of tiptoes over and like puts one finger on the guy's chest while his shoulders are down, and then he turns over for a second so the referee has to break the count. And then he like lies back down for a second so they do it again.
It's genius.
It's really tense. It's the most stressful comedy spot that I've seen in wrestling.
That's
in like
fantastic.
Quite a while. So the current champion, he won it because the guy who had it, he was like running backstage from the initial scramble to get the title. And he hides in like the trunk of the guy's car.
Jesus.
He's like, "Here, I'll help you hide from the horde," you know. And sure enough, like the trunk opens up, the guy pops out, and then he opens the door, and there's a referee in the car, and then just like pulls him down for the 1, 2, 3, and then he drives away in the car.
That's brilliant.
So it's great for the social media era because like you can just like continually talk about the status of the title and like where you are and like what you're doing. And they can like do live cut-ins, like posts on Facebook Live or on the network. Like, it has a lot of potential. We're just waiting for the like them to make the most of it. Right now, they're kind of using it to sell the third hour of Raw because like the ratings are kind of flagging a little bit that they're gonna do like some kind of backstage event, like in the background for the whole last hour, like every week, which is boring. That defeats the whole purpose. If you know, the point is you're not supposed to know when the title's up for grabs.
Yeah.
You know, if it's always up for grabs during this 1 hour, then it's not really the 24/7 title.
Right.
It's like the 1-1 title.
Yeah, that's true. Boring. Like when you turn on TV, that's when you'll watch it be up for grabs.
So yeah, I'm sure I'll talk more about that. It was apparently an idea. So they were recently purchased by they recently sold their television rights to Fox Sports for SmackDown. So USA came back and they supposedly gave them like all these ideas for what they wanted to do to improve ratings on the USA Network. And according to the reports, like all the ideas were terrible, and they just took the best one, which is like kind of funny to think about. And so that's how this happened.
Well,
Yep. All right, so that's all I got this week.
All right.
I know we spoiled a little bit of Thursday's podcast already.
oh,
Maybe we should just do the whole thing again now.
yeah, we should probably re-record Thursdays.
Yep.
Speaking of which, that's the show for this week. Please remember to subscribe to the Corrective Consciousness YouTube and SoundCloud pages. While there, please give us thumbs ups, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. It helps us promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement keeps the show going. You can also catch us on Thursday, which is totally up for grabs. We haven't recorded it yet. For our sister podcast, Corrective Consciousness, the podcast where we explore the inanity of pop culture. Finally, you could follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, if you are interested in seeing my videos early, getting in an exclusive live stream, selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, or getting involved in conversations between, I said conversations, it's fine, don't worry, it never happens, between me and other patrons on Discord, then perhaps consider swinging by my Patreon account, which can be found at patreon.com/LotusPrince.
And you can find me as Old Man Stompy on most major gaming and social media networks, although I am not up for grabs 24/7. My wife would have something to say about that.
That's very, 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 very true. Wise words.
Wise words. That's why you have me.
It is. And of course, you could follow Vice the Bold and Pyro Jack Frost on their various social media outlets. Pyro just straight up says, find me on social media, and Vice lists 1,000 fucking things, which are basically just everything. So you could find Vice anywhere. It's fine.
Especially Battle.net.
Yeah, don't forget Battle.net. But alright, thank you very much for listening. Until next time, everyone.
Cheers. And there should be a third thing here, but there's only 2 of us. So
Yeah. Bye-bye.
It's a little weird.
There it is. That was the Vice bye. Yeah. Welcome to the May 28th, 29 episode. Wow, I actually messed it up. I'm pulling a...
Oh my god.
I'm pulling a... This is bullshit. Fuck!
You should definitely leave that in.
Alright, here we go. Take 2.